Hey everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today. We're excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in health IT. And our guest today is Pranam Ben. He's founder and CEO at The Garage. Welcome, Pranam.
Thank you, John. Great to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, excited to learn from you and The Garage and the innovation that you're doing. But for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and The Garage.
I'm Pranam Ben. Like I said, I've always been a techie, been an engineer by profession, and been an entrepreneur for 15 years now. And I've built my career and my approach to life with this fundamental belief that when you can bring technology, data, and human spirit together, you can bring in real change in this world. That's fundamentally my belief, and that's what I've been applying through my journey as an entrepreneur. And healthcare gives me the greatest opportunity to apply it in the most realistic way possible.
Awesome. And how about The Garage?
We are a platform company. We've been around for 12 plus years. And when we started, we started the journey on April 1, 2012. It was the same day that the first batch of ACOs were found in the country. So back then we had this thing, value-based care is the answer for many things that are broken in healthcare. It's not going to fix the system, right? But it is going to help us make progress. And we doubled down on it. We committed to value-based care, and we made it our entire mission to be the platform that empowers value-based care one community at a time. So that's basically what we do.
Yeah, talk to me about how healthcare and technology have evolved. You've been doing this for a while. From what some may call Health 1.0, we had this 2.0 stuff, but now maybe like Healthcare 3.0 today.
Absolutely. Like you said, Health 3.0 is a third wave of our evolution into a more systems-driven, data-first healthcare experience. Health 1.0 is the traditional brick-and-mortar paper charts business done. We lived in that for many decades, right? And then with the advent of EMR and meaningful use that happened in the early 2000s, we saw this first time ever digitization of patient records, right? So that to me was Health 2.0, and it was done with the right intent back then. But what we didn't foresee is how important it was to design interoperability into digitization, which I think I look at it as a lost opportunity, which in a way forced us into Health 3.0, which is this idea that you want to have a population health management strategy to design the best care for your patients. So it starts with that data first, population first, community-facing strategy, and allows you to define the best treatment, define the best care for your patients, which is the opportunity and the reality that we are all dealing with today.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is a different mindset, though, than what we've had in the past. So what do you view as kind of the Healthcare 3.0 tenets that healthcare organizations should be embracing today, and what are some of the challenges and opportunities associated with that?
I think the first thing, you're absolutely right. I think it's mindset and culture, right? I think the first thing that you want to think about is, healthcare happens when the patient leaves the physician's office. If you really think about it, because when the patient walks in, you're reacting to something that has already happened.
Yeah, that's
right. When the patient leaves the office is when you have the opportunity to ensure that you have a pulse on that patient, on the patient's behaviors, their interactions, social, demographic, clinical, whatever lifestyle, right? So allowing and understanding those tenets is what is key to ensure that we have a community-facing, patient-first approach to this Health 3.0 era that we are in. So that's a big tenet. And to do that, you have to have a data-first approach, right? Because in the traditional model, you were reacting to something, there was a service being provided, and there was the monetization of the entire system around that particular episode, right? Now you're basically looking at, the data is going to tell me what the patient's articulated and unarticulated needs are, and I have to design my entire ecosystem around that, So if you don't have a data-first approach, I think we're going to be challenged as an industry. And then we've got to think about, in this equation, how do we adopt digital tools and technology, right? So we have this thing about data-first and digital-first approach to empowering organizations to have this community-facing strategy. So I think those are the main tenets of being successful in this Health 3.0 opportunity that we have, at least for the next 5 years, is the way I see it, John. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I think you're right. Health 3.0 is about the data
Yeah.
and leveraging the data to do impactful things. What do you see coming as Health 4.0, for lack of a better term?
It's a great question. I think at some point, I think we are doing all the right things now, right? We are breaking the walls that have traditionally created siloed streams of healthcare services, right? I think it is going to take us a lot of time to truly create a cohesive ecosystem where all the constituents consensually come together. Health 4.0 is this optimal, utopian future, if you will, where we put the consumer or the patient at the center of that ecosystem. Today, the patient doesn't have a meaningful role, right? If you really think about it, they don't have any sense of ownership. You don't look at them as a stakeholder in the journey, right? So sadly, you're right. So Health 4.0 is where we begin with that. So all the work we are doing now to break the silos with a data-first approach, then you bring the patient into the mix, put them at the focal, at the center point, empower them to be responsible for their own health, and leverage technologies that we are dreaming about today when we talk about AI and machine learning and whatnot. We have this vision that, imagine if the patient had a twin, right? A twin that the patient basically aspires to be. These are my goals in terms of my personal, physical, and mental well-being, and the twin is a representative of that. So for me to live that vision of the twin, what do I need to do? How do I interact with my care teams? What are my food and social habits that I need to, bring into my, daily life? And that becomes the reality of everyone else that works around that vision. So that's how I see as Health 4.0, where we are more consumer-driven than we have ever been, and we are empowering the patient to be at the center of healthcare delivery.
That's interesting. I mean, when I look at the industry now and I look the way it's architected, it's really around the EHR.
Yeah,
And I was at an EHR user conference recently, and they said, we've always been patient at the center. And I thought to myself, no, you're not. You're a big billing engine that wanted people to get paid. And then you built pharmacy, and you built labs, and and now, and then you kind of evolved to clinician to be more patient care. And then now you're kind of looking at the patient. So I'd love to hear what you think. What type of system architecture is needed to see this vision that you just described of Health 4.0 to be successful? Because to me, the EHRs are trying to move that, but it's so hard to get out of getting the organization paid.
None of the EHRs, and with all due respect to every EHR out there, they were born out of a need to manage an encounter, a need to manage the administrative aspects of the encounter. It was never designed with the patient in mind. That is the reality that we are facing today, right? In terms of the system architecture, and I think about this a lot, John, we talked about data first. I think that's primal. We talked about digital first. I think that's an opportunity to leverage digitization for scale, right? But the most important aspect, and it has to be platform-based. I think we need, if you think about every other progressive industry that has transformed itself, it's transformed itself using a platform-based approach, right? So I think healthcare will evolve into using platforms for transformation. But I think the fourth and the most important dimension of the architecture is human-centric. So we got to be data-first, digital-first, platform-based. But at the end of the day, healthcare was, is, and will always be human-centric. So any adoption of an architecture that creates a friction to that human component, to that patient-provider relationship, right, I think will erode what we've spent decades and years to build together, right? So building that architecture is something that we as an organization of the Garage are committed to. And we have a point of view on it that every day gets calibrated with the realities of real world situations, but we are committed to it. I think the opportunity is real. I think the data speaks for itself, right? And one of the things that I've seen in the last 5 years that I haven't seen in the last 25 years is there is more awareness and commitment to change in healthcare by various stakeholders that historically has not been seen. Some of it is born out of need. Some of it is born out of excitement about the future, right? But that's exciting for me. I'm an optimist. I'm always been an optimist, right? So I'm excited. But at the same time, I also see that we have become very top heavy as an industry. Um, and I think about the reality beyond 2013. And you think about what kind of healthcare are we leaving behind for the next generation, right? Today, it's not a good picture, right? So what we do in the next 5 years as a community, all of us, we all have a role to play, Lisa. So that's what I'm excited about. That's what I think this architecture will lead us to set us up for that Health 4.0 and beyond. And as long as we are grounded in that human-centric approach with the digital-first, data-first, platform-based architecture, I think we will set ourselves up for a very sustainable system. And if you think, I think there was this report that came out about the top 10 developed nations, and I don't know if you read that, it came from. So it basically said that the US had the lowest score on all factors that define a healthcare experience with the highest spend. It's not a great picture for us to look at. But what was interesting in that it was not the demand. The demand was the same in all the nations. If I think about per capita per patient, it's the cost of servicing that demand that gave us that. So that's the reality that we are dealing with.
Yeah,
right?
that's interesting. And where does the garage fit into this vision? Like, what can you do at the garage to help organizations that want to kind of accelerate this vision of putting the patient at the center?
We empower that. We empower that journey, right? Because if you talk about data first, that's where our journey began as a platform. Digital first, we are a tech platform at the end of the day that basically, centralizing the services and decentralizing the intelligence. That's basically how we come at it. And platform based, we are a platform company. We absolutely believe that, think of us as the Windows of value-based care, John, right? Like the operating system of value-based care. And in enabling that, we want to kind of be that Microsoft of value-based care. It's kind of like how we look at it from an opportunity standpoint. So we have a head start. We've been doing this for 12 years. So we have a head start in having a vision for it. And we have an amazing clientele that are committed to that vision with us. And you have to have that long-term commitment, right? This is not a 6-month, 1-year journey. So one of the things that I tell all my customers is that if we are going to do this, be prepared to know me for a very long time, right? So,
well, it's like you said, it doesn't happen overnight. Right? It
overnight.
takes culture change, which doesn't happen overnight, and commitment. Right. I love that. Right. Any final thoughts on kind of where we're headed and what healthcare organizations should be doing to be prepared for this future?
I think the bringing in a true cultural change around what healthcare is going to be, right? And having the perspective of an outside-in mindset rather than an inside-out mindset, right? What is the reality of your patients when they're not in front of you? Do you have an understanding of that? Do you have an understanding of the fact that 80% of what influences a patient's health happens outside of your walls, right? So it's not the patient data that you have, it's the reality of the activity and the health of the patient outside of the wall. So these will require some breaking down the barriers of traditional thinking and conventional wisdom in healthcare. I think it starts there. So that governance, that mindset, that culture. The rest will fall in place once you kind of are on board with this change that is needed. Then you'll look at technologies, you look at tools, you look at data, you look at partners. The rest will fall in place, right? So that's basically how I look at it. And transforming that mindset is not going to come easy. It's like they say, old habits die hard.
Yeah, for
right?
Sure.
It's not going to come easy, but I think with a collective effort, we can get there, and we have to allow for this to happen naturally. And I think that's where I commend CMS and their commitment to value-based care and all the alternate payment models. We can argue the fact that it's not done much to move the needle in a significant way, but it's done enough to believe in it, right? To start, exactly. It gives us a starting point, it gives us a jumping point. So that's basically how I look at it, and that's what I hope and I wish for all organizations to start thinking about that culture change, that mindset change, so everything else will fall in place.
That's interesting. I mean, I would describe, like on our CIO podcast, the best CIOs are saying, we need a culture change.
Yeah.
There's a culture problem, not a tech problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And tech can facilitate that
Correct.
once the culture change happens.
100%.
So I love that.
100%.
Pranam, this is really interesting. I love hearing these views of Health 3.0 and Health 4.0 and where we're going. So I appreciate you taking time
John,
to talk
thank
to
you
me.
so much for having me. It was fun.
Thanks everyone for watching and listening. If you want to find more great healthcare IT content like this, be sure to check it out at healthcareittoday.com or search for Healthcare IT Today on your favorite podcast applications. Thanks, Pranam.
Appreciate it. Thanks, sir.